Max Scherzer recently had back surgery and could miss the entire first half of the 2024 season. Let's discuss on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5 on Tuesday, December 19th. I am Frank Sanford, joined by Scott White. And let's talk about this injury to Max Scherzer. We know he's dealt with back and neck injuries off and on over the past couple of years. Well, he had surgery to repair a herniated disc in his back and will now be out until likely June or July. Scott, you had Scherzer as your SP23 before the injury. How far down are you dropping him?
Quite a bit, Frank. Quite a bit. Max Scherzer is now 75th in my starting pitcher ranking, so more than 50 spots. 75th puts him in between. Ahead of him are Brandon Pfaadt, Luis Severino, Kenta Maeda, three pitchers who, a lot of risks, but I perceive to have a fair amount of upside. And then right behind Max Scherzer are Michael Wacha, Seth Lugo, Lance Lynn, pitchers who I perceive as not having so much upside. So he's kind of forming a dividing line there with that tier, as often happens with these quality pitchers who suffer long-term injuries. I think if you play in a shallower league with IL spots, so, most of the audience probably does, that's the appropriate point to draft Max Scherzer. Very late in the draft, stash him away in your IL spot. Hope he makes a difference for you in the second half. It's hard to find an impact pitcher in this environment. Max Scherzer, when he's healthy, should be that. But if you play in a deeper league, particularly one without IL spots, and you're going to have to use up a bench spot on him for half the year, that's going to be harder to justify.
And then interestingly enough, the Rangers also signed Tyler Mahle to a 2-year deal, who is returning from Tommy John surgery himself. Likely won't pitch until the second half of the season. So they're going to have to make it through that first half. But if they do, we're talking about potentially Scherzer, DeGrom, and Tyler Mahle rejoining the Rangers' rotation in the second half of the season. Lourdes Gurriel is re-signing with the Dbacks on a 3-year, $42 million deal, which includes an opt-out after the second year and a club option for 2027. Gurriel enjoyed a fine bounce-back season where he hit .261 with a career-high 24 homers, 82 RBI, and a .772 OPS. Scott, the early ADP for Gurriel is 236.9. 53rd outfielder off the board, going just behind Taylor Ward, Jared Kelenic, Starling Marte. Does that range sound right for Lourdes Gurriel?
I mean, that's almost exactly where I have him. Now, I do think there's a chance in that ADP, NFBC especially, that this news is going to move him up because now we know where he's going. And it's a good destination for Lourdes Gurriel. Not that Arizona is an amazing place to hit these days, but we know he's going to play every day because they previously had Jake McCarthy and Alec Thomas slotted into two of their outfield spots, neither of whom deserves to be starting in the majors. Lourdes Gurriel as a low OBP right-handed hitter, corner man, I don't think he was guaranteed to get an everyday job on the open market, but with the Diamondbacks he will. And he did hit better in Arizona than on the road last year, so he certainly didn't seem damaged by that environment. And I think as a fourth or fifth outfielder in a roto league, if you're looking for power especially, I think Lourdes Gurriel is fine. Again, it becomes like a shallow league, deep league thing where if you're in a shallow league, maybe selling out for the upside of Jared Kelenic instead makes sense. If you're in a deep league, maybe you play it safe with Gurriel.
The Royals, surprisingly, have been busy recently, and they signed Michael Wacha to a 2-year, $32 million contract. He's made 47 starts over the past 2 years, a 3.27 ERA, a 1.14 WHIP during that time. His early ADP is 271.6, and I'll quickly mention the other one, Scott, in case you want to touch on it. The Royals also signed Hunter Renfroe to a 1-year deal, and it looks like he'll slot in as their starting right fielder. Any thoughts on Michael Wacha and Hunter Renfroe to the Royals?
Well, I'll start with Michael Wacha because that's a little more straightforward. Very similar to the analysis I gave on Seth Lugo last week, especially since they're going from the same team to the same team, Padres to Royals. And they're similar in terms of statistical output, kind of below average strikeout guys, but not nothing for strikeouts. And we had some ERA concerns with them about their ability to continue what they were doing. Going to the Royals helps with that. It's one of the most pitcher-friendly venues there is. And yet I do think stock slightly down for both Wacha and Lugo because now they're going to one of the worst teams in baseball. If they're not going to be big strikeout guys, you really want them to get wins. Unlikely they're going to get that many with the Royals. As for Renfro, I liked Renfro a lot the past couple of years. I thought he was undervalued. He stopped doing the trick that made him undervalued. So, favorable venues the past few years, Boston, Milwaukee, at least for a right-handed power hitter like him, Boston is, and delivered, 30 plus homers. Was in another hitter-friendly venue this past year, Angels. Great park for home runs. Got traded to the Reds, even better park for home runs. Had a bad year, and he's in his 30s now. So I don't think there's a guarantee he bounces back going to Kansas City. That's the worst park we've seen in Hunter Renfroe play in years. And it might not go well. I think there's a chance he bounces back with 25 homers or so with Lourdes Gurriel production, basically. But that's kind of the upside for Hunter Renfroe at this destination, with the downside is obviously more like what we saw last year.
All right. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Audacy app, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we'll be back again on Thursday. Bye-bye.